The following episode touches on grief and loss. Please exercise discretion to decide if listening to this episode is right for you, and if you need support, call Lifeline on 13 11 14. What if your intuition wasn't random, but an actual gift you were meant to follow? Hello and welcome to Finding Spirit, the podcast that dives deeper into what lies beyond. I'm Angela Tjeuw, and I'm excited to take you into the inner world of psychic mediums, astrologers, tarot readers, and energy healers to uncover the truth of why are we really here?
Anyone can learn Reiki. You don't necessarily have to be gifted as a healer. You can learn it because it's through an attunement that gives you the ability to do the healing.
You'll meet Sophy Robertson, who knew from the age of 4 that she had a gift for connecting with spirit. She's not only a psychic medium, but a Reiki master whose sole intention is to help heal others. But having the gift of insight can be quite unnerving.
And knowing that was going to happen was quite scary. And, you sort of think, wow, did I manifest this because I was thinking about it? Or why did that happen?
It almost has elements of Star Wars and the Jedi and the Force.
I would feel this energy, Angela, in my hands, right? This is where I'd feel this pulsing. And you talk about the Jedi, but I would literally feel like I was moving energy. I thought, what is going on? Why is this happening? Why are my hands activating?
What happens to us when we pass?
I knew then that there is a life after death.
Disclaimer. The content in this podcast is for personal reflection only. It is not intended to constitute or be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your doctor or other qualified healthcare professional.
Now, I'm really excited and pumped to introduce to you all Sophy Robertson. She's an intuitive light worker, a healer, a master Reiki practitioner and teacher, and psychic medium. Sophy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Angela. Gosh, that does sound a lot, doesn't it, when you put it like that?
And we're also touching on later on a little bit about your energy space clearing as well. So I love that you have all these different modalities or strings to your bow. Is there one that resonates more with you?
That's a great question, Angela. To be honest, when I describe to my students about what I do, and I put all of those things together, and I just basically say to everyone that the main theme or the common thread in all of those abilities is working with energy. And fundamentally, that's what all of those things are, working with energy. So when you say, which one do I prefer? Is there one that I love most? I mean, I adore doing my Reiki, my healing. That's working with energy. When you transfer light energy through the body and heal people, that's really, really rewarding. But also as a psychic medium, you're working with energy because you're bringing in messages from the spirit world, which is also equally healing and heartwarming when you do that as well. Same as space clearing. When you work as a space clearer, you're working with the energy in a space. You're moving energy around. You're clearing any heaviness. I don't like referring to bad energy. People say, oh, what's bad energy like? And I say, well, it's not really bad energy. It's just heavy energy or old, stagnant, stale energy that you move. But again, that's just all energy. So that's really the common thread through all of those.
Yeah. And I love the use of the term light worker. What does it mean for you?
So light worker to me is somebody that is literally changing the frequency of energy within a person, within a space, within an area. So you're going in and you're once upon a time you may have been called a white witch, but that sounds a bit scary and old-fashioned. So a light worker is probably a nicer term to use when you're working with energy and you're clearing. So you're changing. I help to change the frequency and the energy in a space. Or when I'm doing my healing, I'm clearing the energy that's heavy from a person. And so that's where the light worker comes in. Also, when you look at a light worker, it's someone that has been here before or that comes from a different planet. But that's another conversation, perhaps. But we talk about light workers, that people that have come from different dimensions, that come through, that are here on this earth to kind of help change the energy and to change the vibe. And so that's another way of looking at a light work.
It almost has elements of Star Wars and the Jedi and the Force as you were talking.
Funny you say that, because before I got into this, I was doing what I call a normal job, which was working in the film industry for many years. But I would always, in my meditation, I would sit at home, and before I started doing Reiki healing, I would feel this energy, Angela, in my hands, right? This is where I'd feel this pulsing. And you talk about the Jedi, but I would literally feel like I was moving energy. I thought, what is going on? Why is this happening? Why are my hands activating? Why is it that I go up to people sometimes and want to put my hands on them? And this would be crew at work. So this is before I even sort of tapped into Reiki. So there was an element of something powerful happening within the hands. And that was something that I was really drawn to. I thought, okay, there's more for me to do here. Yes, I have always been a psychic medium ever since a child. And I sort of put that to one side for a while because that was considered a bit woo-woo. So I didn't sort of take that up until later in life. But the pulsing of the hands and the energy that was moving and the way that I could kind of move energy was a little bit like Star Wars. It's like, whoa, what's going on here? How's this happening? And that was the driver for me I thought there's something in this and I really need to work on this so that I can help people. I knew that there was a sense of healing. I knew that there was a sense of being able to empower people and help people. So I was very much drawn to that, I suppose, yeah.
And so that energy you felt in your hands, did that just come out of the blue, or was it something that came through with meditation and practice, or how did it get activated?
I think the activation part happened when I became attuned to Reiki. Certainly the heat that I was experiencing prior to that was probably source guiding me to do this work. You know, I always talk about having a royal sort of boot from the spirit world into doing this work, and I felt this push to do this. And I think with the hands, certainly it was about, okay, they're showing me that this is an area I need to tap into. So that was making me curious. That was making me want to kind of engage into this. And then that's how I sort of started to work with healing and look into Reiki and what is Reiki and where does it come from and why is it powerful? And I think when I then tapped into that and became a Reiki 1 practitioner, which then led me to become a Reiki 2 practitioner, and then I could start to work as a healer. And there was no doubt in my mind, Angela, that this was my journey, because it was, very, very powerful and empowering to see how I could help people very quickly. And that shift happened very, very quickly. And so that's, so it's very rewarding to be able to be of service to others and to help others and to see shifts and see changes in people. I've got clients that I've been working with now since 2011, which is when it all sort of started to change for me. And it's beautiful to see their transformation. It's really wonderful. So I know that this is my area. I know this is something I should be doing. I need to be doing.
Wow, that's amazing. And what do they describe they experience during a Reiki session? What are they feeling?
So it's a good question. So lots of people experience different things depending on what they're coming for. So, if you're coming because you've had a bad relationship, and so there's a lot of emotional energy that might be lingering, and so you're clearing that emotional layer. And so what they might actually physically feel during a healing session is they might feel sort of tingling. Some people say their body feels really heavy. Other people say they feel really light. They feel like they're floating off the table. I get people that say that they can't feel their legs or they can't feel their arms. And sometimes they feel like they're not sure where they are, like they've gone into another dimension. And that's quite exciting. And that happens more often. Sometimes say I felt really cold throughout that, which is really interesting because when I do hands-on healing, the heat that comes out of my hands is just phenomenal. I mean, sometimes I think I could fry an egg with these hands. Just depends what they're releasing as to what they feel. So somebody that's, going through a very struggle with depression, and it's that sort of mental mind things, it can feel quite heavy when that energy is moving. So it just depends what people come for, to what they experience. But certainly after sessions, I mean, they say, oh my gosh, I feel lighter, I feel clearer. I'm not as unfocused. I feel brighter. I feel more motivated. I have more energy. It's just remarkable, really.
I saw you for a Reiki session a few months ago, and one of my areas was clearing, obstacles around self-confidence and clearing the voice, which is really helpful, when you're doing podcasts and, using your voice for communication. And I did feel, that any barriers sort of were lifted after the session, and I just, went ahead and did my first interview after that. So I definitely can relate to that sort of clearing and lightness around things that seemingly seemed, a little hurdle prior to that. But for you, like, can you demystify what the Reiki is? Like, what are you experiencing in terms of moving energy? Like, and what does that look like for you?
Just think of it like this. So everything is energy, Angela. We're energy, table we're sitting on or chair we're sitting on, the water we're drinking, the food we're eating, the air we're breathing, everything is energy. And when you start to understand that, it becomes a little bit clearer to realize that you're just blending your energy with the other person's energy. Okay, so you're tapping into their frequency, their energy. And so that's when there's something that isn't aligned or in alignment, it kind of, to me, it feels a little bit heavy. It's almost like it becomes a shape within the body, or it feels you kind of mold. It's like, imagine you've got a ball in between your hands and you can start to feel that ball in your hands. And the same thing is when you're doing a healing on a person, you're feeling the energy of the person and what that feels like. So to me, I get a sense of there being, oh, this feels heavy. I need to spend a bit more time here, or this part of the body feels lighter, so I don't need to be there so much. So you're literally tuning in. As I tune in, I also get visions. So for me, I get visions about past things. It can be past lives even, or past experiences that they've are having issues with, perhaps, that need clearing. So it helps me tap into a person more to see what needs to be released. It's almost like a tap or a valve that I kind of unclog, or, someone said to me, oh, it sounds like you're a plumber. I'm blocking the drains. And I said, well, I could be called a plumber. I could be called many things, but, I don't mind if I'm a plumber, if that's how you view it. But it's sort of a filter. You're filtering out all the stuff that is clogging people, that's holding people, and when if you think about it, when you're stressed in your body and everything tenses up, your neck, your hands, and you're in this, and nothing can flow. Energy can't flow when it's like that. You want to be nice and relaxed, and allow energy to flow. You want to be like a Swiss clock, a finely tuned Swiss clock, where it all just flows beautifully. And when something's out of balance, it doesn't flow. And so for me, I go in and I tune in to see what is that and why is that, and sometimes we don't even know. Sometimes people come to me unconscious around some of the things they have. They might come to me for something, but I pick up something else from, previous experience or when they were younger. We're quite complex beings, really, but we consider us like the layer of onions. And it's like, okay, let's just peel back that layer, peel back until you come to the sort of the core. And that's where it all counts, when you can really get to the tiny little bit that's holding people. And as I said, sometimes it can be really subtle and sometimes it's really big. It just depends. But if you're open during the healing, then it's very, very powerful how that changes you. And people kind of sometimes they sit up off the table and they look at me and they go, I don't know what just happened, but I feel great. So they can't explain it themselves. They can't understand it necessarily, but they know they feel better for it. And so it's beautiful, really.
You're actually not physically touching people, are you? You're sort of hovering above the body itself.
No, this is hands-on healing.
There is hands-on touching, yes.
Hands-on healing.
I must have been out of it.
And I mean, it's very gentle touch. It's not, you're not sort of, you're very gently moving around, and you move around the chakra system, the chakra points in the body, which is like energy systems that we all have. There's about 7, well, there are more than 7, but we work with the main 7 chakra points throughout the body, and that's where we're working. So the hands-on healing is very powerful, and that's where the heat kind of comes through. I mean, sometimes, when I'm doing remote healing, of course, I'm not, somebody can be in England or somewhere else in the world or somewhere else in Australia, and that's not hands-on healing. But the person that receives that remote healing will feel like they've got someone's hands on them. Angela's looking at me like, how does that work?
And it does. I was thinking, how does that work? Please explain.
So thoughts are energy.
Is it a different process? Yeah.
No, it's exactly the same. For me, as a Reiki practitioner doing a remote healing, I go through the same process that I do if a person was in front of me. But just for you to understand how that works. So thoughts are energy, okay? And so how often would you perhaps think of someone and then the phone rings and it's a person you're thinking about? So that's you're joining up, you're connecting with that person energetically just through thoughts. And so remote healing is the same thing. You're working with energy through that same line, if you like. And so often when I'm doing a remote healing, people will say to me, it's almost sometimes more powerful doing a remote healing than if they're in person. The sensations they feel are remarkable. They feel, it's almost like they say, I could feel your hand on my shoulder, or I could feel your hand on my solar plexus. I could feel the energy move through my body. It's exactly the same. There's no magic trick to it.
And do you think everyone, like you said, the more open you are, the more the impact of the healing will be? Is there ever a situation where someone is so tightly wound that they're not able to receive it? It's hard for you to feel that energy flow through?
So sometimes people come and they, for example, they haven't had a session before, so they're not sure what to experience, or they're not sure what's going to happen. And not to say that they're closed, but they might sort of be lying on the Reiki table, kind of anticipating, or sort of, it doesn't bother me, but a lot of the time they're sort of thinking, what's happening? And about sort of 15 minutes into the session, they're either completely relaxed, have fallen asleep, or just don't know quite where they are because I don't know what happened, but I'm feeling a lot less stress now, or I don't have as much tension in my shoulders, or whatever it is they're coming for. I love having someone that has never had a session before, and I love to see how they respond to it in a positive way, which is, how they do. I've never, touch wood, had anyone say to me after a session, well, I didn't feel anything, that didn't work, I'm not coming back.
That's amazing. And do you think, how many sessions do you recommend people have, or does it depend on the situation? Or
yeah, so it does depend. I always like to say to my clients, come back whenever you feel you'd like to. I don't sort of stipulate a certain amount unless there's something really specific that we might be dealing with that might require 2 or 3 sessions, and I might say it might need 2 or 3 sessions. It's a little bit like when you want to have a massage and you think, oh, I'm a bit tired, I'm going to have a massage, or you want to go and have a haircut and you think, well, my hair looks great, and then all of a sudden it doesn't, and you book in a haircut. And Reiki is the same. It's like all of a sudden you feel a bit, flat or low energy or uninspired or whatever it is that you're experiencing, and you think, oh, actually, I need to have a bit of a retune and a rebalance. And that's what it is. It's really, you're balancing your aura, you're balancing your energy, you're balancing your chakra points, and that just brings you into complete alignment. So there is a sense of peace, calmness, focus. It helps with sleep. It helps with menopause. It helps with so many things in life that we're all going through, and so it just brings in that balance where you just feel a bit lighter and a bit clearer and a bit happier, and not as stressed and not as wound up, not as tense, or not as upset. So it is really something that we should all be doing more of, and I think everyone would be a lot happier if they were doing more Reiki sessions.
And I know you teach this now as well. How did you transition from practicing and helping people to teaching it?
Well, it's funny, my Reiki teacher, when we first connected, I remember her saying to me, you're going to be an amazing teacher one day. And she's also a psychic medium herself. And I said, I think you're right, because I was so excited to learn Reiki. I was so excited about how it made me feel. And it did. It completely changed my life, Angela. Doing my first level 1 Reiki course was a game changer for me. And I just knew that I wanted to serve others. I wanted to help others. It wasn't for myself, but it did help myself. But I knew that I was very passionate around being of service to others. And that's where it was. And I just basically said, right, this is what I want to do. And I set myself out and I thought, I want to do this. And I went through the timings that you have to do, going from level 1 to level 2 to master Reiki to then teacher training. And then teacher training is quite an involved process. It's about a year of, one-on-ones and practical training and that you go through. And so I dedicated, it wasn't a cheap process, but it certainly is incredibly rewarding. And now I just love teaching Reiki. I probably love teaching more than I love in-person sessions. All balances out, but it's just rewarding to see how other people learn the process of Reiki healing, because anyone can learn Reiki. You don't necessarily have to be gifted as a healer. You can learn it because it's through an attunement that gives you the ability to do the healing. So it is open to anyone, really.
Yeah, that's really exciting that we can all access, the healing, but also then to learn it ourselves. And you can apply it to yourself as well, can't you? The Reiki healing that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Self-healing. I do my self-healing all the time. As before I set myself up in the morning, I do my little meditation to set myself up for the day. And I do a very quick self-healing. It's remarkable that way. It's very calming, very relaxing.
And with the levels, does that mean the complexity increases from level 1, 2, 3 to master? Like, what are the different levels relating to?
So Reiki level 1 is open to anyone that is interested in Reiki, that would like to understand a little bit more about Reiki, about what it is. You go through the history of Reiki, where it began. You learn about the fundamentals. You learn sort of the basic hand positions. You learn hand positions on a person. You learn lying down positions, seated positions. And you learn about the connection of energy and how it works. So it's like a baseline understanding, if you like. And Reiki level 1 is open to anyone. And anyone that is attuned to Reiki level 1 can do healings on themselves. Healings on others, healings on animals, on food, water. You just can't work as a practitioner. So when you move, if you're interested in doing Reiki level 2, then you start to decide that, okay, this is something really that you love. And then at Reiki level 2, you can actually be a practitioner. You can train to have your own practice, if you like. And you learn symbols. We learn 3 major symbols, which are very, very powerful. I can't say what they are because they're confidential, but they increase your own power, your own frequency increases, your depth of understanding increases. You learn how to do remote healings on others. You learn all kinds of sort of, more involved techniques. You start to work on the emotional layer, the mental layer, the spiritual layer. So you go a little bit deeper with it. And then level 3 is, again, more symbols. You learn more powerful symbols. You learn how to go through past lives. Depending on what your beliefs are, we've all been here before, and it's about learning where you came from, in your past life. Not everyone brings something into this life that's bad, but often we bring in behaviors or traits or circumstances that we were in a previous life. Certainly when I started Reiki, I saw past life straight away. It came up very naturally for me. So I was very drawn into working in past life. So for me to do my master's, was really exciting because I really wanted to learn how to tap into past life regression work and to clear karmic things that we may have brought in. And then if you're keen to carry on, you can then, after a year or so later, become a Reiki Master teacher. And again, you learn how to be a teacher and more symbols and what that means. So it's more involved. So look, it's not a quick journey, but if you're interested in it and you're drawn to it, I think, Angela, then it's available to anyone that's just, wants to do the work. And you'll find that there are more people at the moment. You'll find there are more people at the moment that are so aware of healing and Reiki and what it is. If I look at when I first started, which was about 2011, 2012, to now, it's much more accepted and open and available than it was then. So things are changing in a positive way, which is great.
Yeah, and you touched on the healing that you can do with pets as well, and children. But I was really interested because you met my dog Charlie, and I noticed that he planted himself right at your feet to get as many cuddles as possible, and that energy, he must have sensed that from you. Is that something you turn on and off, or is it always just ever present that dogs can sense and animals pick up?
So animals are divine, but they are so much more sensitive than humans. And so, yeah, Charlie, he's beautiful. He's a gorgeous guy, a little Charlie. But animals sense energy much, much stronger than humans do. I mean, animals will know when you're upset before you're even upset. So they have this sensory awareness, which is quite remarkable. So they know things more than we do as humans. And they respond beautifully to healing. And I do find myself going into homes and animals will just naturally gravitate to me. Cats, dogs, birds. I've got a possum at home that comes to see me all the time. They do just kind of gravitate and feel very comfortable in my energy, which is, I know. And also kids as well. I adore kids, and kids are always coming up and want to kind of, play and talk. And I do Reiki on animals and I do Reiki on children. The age gap is probably about 4 years old up to, 90 years old. But animals are really, really sensitive to energy and they respond really well to Reiki. It's almost like they know you're helping them, So even cats that can be a little bit running their own race, so to speak, they respond really well to Reiki. It's remarkable. They come and they will sit in my lap, and when they've had enough, they'll get up and they'll walk away. And I do Reiki to my 2 dogs at home, and they just love it. I just have to say the word Reiki, and they just look at me and they just lie on the ground and roll over, and they just it's quite cute. And our animals are really, they love it, and they're very, very sensitive, as I said, so they respond very well. And they don't need as much time when I'm healing animals, so they don't need as long as humans do, let's say.
They're probably very open and receptive to receiving the love and the healing.
Yeah, completely. And it's beautiful. And even kids, I get some young kids that come that have different things going on for them. And it's just amazing how they'll feel something happen and they'll look at me and they'll go, ooh, what was that? They don't know what it is, but they feel energy moving. When the young ones, it's like, oh, I felt a tickle, or I felt a this, or I felt a that. And it's just lovely to see how young children feel energy as well, how they respond. So it's wonderful that way.
What things have you been able to help the kids with?
So whether it be around teenage, adolescent, around confidence, self-esteem, self-worth, nerves around exams, the stresses they feel around exam time and the build up to that. School can be quite tough for children, boys and girls, wanting to fit in. So it's about sort of boosting their confidence, their self-esteem. It can be really helpful for that. People with ADHD, it can be quite difficult in that time, the focus. So it can help with focus, calming the mind, bringing in stillness. all kinds of things, drug abuse, alcohol, smoking. It can really help any kind of addictive behavior. And it happens a lot in young kids, unfortunately, now. So there's no rule really about what you can and what you can't, but it helps to kind of clear those behaviors, those needs that creep up, and kids have a struggle. That's really tough for them at the moment.
That's beautiful that you can help, anyone and everyone, and that we can also learn how to do it for ourselves, through that level 1 that you were sharing before. But even just playing with energy ourselves, like you said, you can do that hand technique and feel that warmth in your fingers.
Yeah.
Kind of that chi force, really, isn't it? Yeah.
One of the first things I teach the students is to imagine they've got this, rub your hands together and feel the heat in your hands. And it's like, okay, they suddenly feel these ball of energy, and that's like, that's what we're working with. We're working with energy, and it makes sense when there's something tangible to hold. It kind of makes more sense, I think, for the students. So.
Yeah. That's great. And in terms, we're going to dive into a bit of your past. You mentioned, I can hear there's not an Aussie accent there. So can you share a bit about your cultural heritage and the age you were when you did tap into spirit, when you started to feel you had other senses alive?
It's funny you say I'm English. I mean, I am English, but I have been living here now for probably about 33, 34 years. So I was 21 when I came out to Australia. And the reason I came out to Australia was because my mother and my father used to live in Mossman for about 3 or 4 years when they were young, when they first got married. And so there was always an interest to come out to Australia. And I think when I came out here, like most young people, find the country to be amazing, and the weather, and, a lot of people come over here and they decide they don't want to go back. And I think I just sort of, fell into that mold, really. But in terms of my ability to tune into things, I was always a little bit different as a young child, and probably quite difficult for my mother, I think, but a bit of a challenge. But I always would kind of talk about my imaginary friends when I was quite young. I'd have conversations with people, and I would share this with Mum, and I remember her saying, that's a nice little story you're making up. And I'd say, no, Mum, there was really somebody in the room that I was talking to. And I think they just went along with it because they just didn't know any better. But in actual fact, in hindsight, I was talking to spirit. I had people, visiting me and wherever I was, and I could see spirit very clearly, and I was very sensitive to that. And so from a young age, I just didn't know what it was. I just referred to them as my imaginary friends, which was a bit strange as a youngster. And then just things would start to happen where I would become aware of things, and I would know things about people. I would say things to my mum about friends and their friends and her friends. And then Mum would say, how do you know that? And I'd say, well, I just know. And then I might be predicting something that might happen 2 or 3 weeks later. And so there was this sort of strange kind of, what's going on? How come you saw that and that's happened 2 weeks later and you're 8 years old or you're 9 years old? And I think a lot of it was sort of pushed down and suppressed, perhaps out of their own fear and me not really understanding or not having a place to sort of talk about it as well. But it was always there, Angela. And there was always something. I was always had this sort of inner knowing about things. And that sort of didn't really go away until the time where I was about sort of 16 and my own mother passed. And that was a bit of a strange one because I actually predicted her passing about a month or so beforehand. And I kept telling everyone, this is what's going to happen. And they're like, don't be silly, don't be silly. But of course it did happen, and it happened exactly how I knew, and it happened the day that I knew it would happen. And that was a bit weird. And I think being a 16-year-old and losing your mother and knowing that was going to happen was quite scary. And, you sort of think, wow, did I manifest this because I was thinking about it? Or why did that happen? So there was a certain element of me shutting this. It's like a door. I don't want to do this. I don't want this to happen. I don't want to think about this. Go away, thoughts, go away. But and they did for a while. but it was always there. There was always a sense of knowing things and seeing spirit and knowing people in the spirit world. And I sort of thought, no, I can't be doing this. This is weird. This is scary. This is not for me. And so I took a sort of turn into the film industry, into photography in the film industry, which is what I did for quite some time. But being a very sensitive soul that I am, I found that quite tough. That industry, it was quite a tough industry for me to stay in and be in, and I realized that actually it wasn't really for me. And I think when the time was right in my life, I was a bit more relaxed, a bit more open, and it's like I sort of allowed the door to open up again and that spirituality to open up. And it came at a time where I was open and ready to receive it. And so I made a very clear decision in my mind that this is where I need to focus my attention now. I'm ready now. I'm perhaps a little bit more mature. I understand myself better. I'm not as threatened by these things. I'm not scared by this anymore. And so it was easy for me to transition away from film into this world. Even though a lot of people thought I was mad, it didn't sort of scare me or bother me. I just knew that this is the journey that I had to now take on and continue to take on. And so, there's no ceiling on the possibilities of where I want to, what I want to do with the business and where I want to go with this as well. I encourage people that come to me when they say, I think my child is gifted. I say, work with them, allow them to be, so it is a gift to having this, bringing in messages for people that have passed. It brings such peace to other people. This is not something that should be shut down. I know a lot of people are scared of it, but they're just fear-based. But we're all spirit and we're all consciousness, and when we pass, that's what we become. We become a conscious, energy, and we might not be in the physical body, but we are still there, and so it's very easy to make that connection when you're open. It's like a radio station. You just tune into that frequency. It sounds easy. It's not easy.
No, and even your transition, you described it so smoothly, Sophie, but was there a part of you that was sort of fighting against your belief system, what you were brought up with, to pursue this path into spirituality? Did you have any doubts, or was it just that it was a tipping point for you and you just knew you had to go down that path?
Look, I think it was a tipping point. I mean, I've always been brought up to, old school. You've got to work hard. You can't have a day off. You can't have a holiday. You just got to keep working. And certainly, in the film industry, well, it is about that. It was very, very long hours and very hard work, and money was coming in, but it would be quite tough and hard. And I remember somebody saying to me, or a few people saying, why are you leaving a job where you're doing really well, you're earning good money, into something that you just don't know? And I just turned to them. I said, I have to trust what I'm being shown. I have to trust the process. And I didn't just stop overnight, though, Angela. There was a transition, which is I would sort of do less film and I would incorporate more of this. So I did balance the two. Sometimes I think I balanced the two too long. I don't know what's right or wrong, but for me, I did it in a time which worked for me. And then at one point, there was a time I just went, that's it. I'm out of this industry and I'm fully into this industry. And that was very, very clear in my mind. That's what I had to do. If anything, I probably should have done it sooner. But there's always that security. I need to earn. I need to support myself. I need to, bring in the money. And not that what I do now is about money, but I have a very good business. So there's no regrets there whatsoever. No regrets whatsoever. And I encourage people to, if they do want to change their career and if they do want to do something different, if they are drawn into opening up their spirituality, I encourage people to do that. Because, that's living their soul's purpose. That's living their truth and being honest to themselves. And people that are living a life in lies, I think, are quite unhappy. And I certainly knew that I was unhappy in the film industry.
It definitely sounds like this new path that you've been on for a while now is really more who you are, and you were always sort of resonating in that vibration anyway. Now you could actually allow yourself to fully be in it. And, you know, you did what you needed to do to integrate those two lives, to give yourself time really to also allow that transition. So I think you've done it takes a lot of courage to do that, Sophie. So, you know, it's you're helping people, doing what you love.
Yeah, well, that's nice, Angela. Thank you. I ran a workshop yesterday actually on finding your soul's purpose and releasing fears and blockages. And one of the ladies there, she just loved hearing my story. I shared my story about how I came to be doing what I'm doing. And she's in exactly that boat where she's unhappy at work. She's been unhappy at work for a long time. She wants to do something else. She's not sure what that is. And so it was very inspiring for her to hear the story. And, you know, and that's what it's about. If I can help others with my own past and my journey into becoming the best version of themselves. And I think that's really, really wonderful and rewarding.
And you've been, you know, a great impetus for me. You know, when I saw you with my psychic reading session with you, you were like, you've got to book in your interviews. Like, what are you doing? And it was the perfect, you know, reminder that I had been stalling. I had been scared and fearful, and I just had to do it. You know, as you put one foot in front of the other, you've just got to, like you say, commit and just keep going.
I love that. And congratulations, Angela. That's really exciting.
Thank you.
Done,
yeah.
well done. Sometimes I do get a bit bossy in my readings. It's only because when I'm seeing for people, I just want them to hear it. So it does come across that way.
But sometimes you need to hear it, you know, be reminded, you know, that it's okay to step out of your comfort zone. And, you know, there is some comfort in, you know, someone like yourself who can see something that maybe the person in the problem can't see. You know, we allow those voices to overwhelm us when really we know the truth. We know what we should be doing. And we might doubt it at times, but really the heart keeps calling, you know, the soul keeps reminding us with little prompts. But I just wanted to touch on as well, because in our reading, my friend who has passed popped in the reading, and I just wondered if you could share, because it was really interesting to watch what happened to you when you sensed her presence, because I didn't actually ask about her. She just decided to join us. So I think you said you felt a presence coming in, and it was almost like I could almost feel her in the room with us. What do you sense or see or feel when someone decides to visit from spirit?
So it's fascinating, and it fascinates me every time it happens. And so I might be, so someone might come and see me, let's say for a psychic reading, or it might not necessarily be mediumship, or it could be a combination of the two. And so I might be mid-flow, giving someone a psychic reading, and what that is just offering people potential of ideas for them to see. I never, you know, dictate or say you have to do this, but I open them up to ideas that are available to them when they're ready to do that. And so I might be in quite a, you know, beautiful flow of conversation like we're having now, and then all of a sudden my energy changes. So I will literally just go, whoop. Okay, I'm feeling energy of someone around me. And as I feel the energy of someone around me, it's like they kind of come into my body sometimes. And so my hands might change, my voice might change, I might start to see an image, I might start to hear something, I might hear their name, I might hear something, and I'll say, oh, I know I have a female in the room with me, Angela, and I know that this lady is connected to you, and I know that she reminds me of this, and she tells me this. And so all of a sudden there'll be this open communication, and they might share things with me so that the person knows that there's evidence. We call it evidential mediumship, where we bring things that make sense to you. You know, if I were to say I just have a lady in the spirit, you might go, okay, well, who is it? And if I don't know, then that doesn't really help. So they will blend their energies as best they can with my energy, for me to bring things forward that make sense. So, oh, yes, that's my aunt, or that's my grandmother, or that's my mother. And then they'll blend with my all six senses. So I'll start to perhaps hear things, or I might hear their voice, and I might say, I know this lady had a beautiful speaking voice, and I know that she loved nice things because she might show me her jewelry or her rings. And I know that she liked to dress well, or I get a sense of that. And sometimes I might say, I know she's not English. I know she spoke another language. I know that perhaps she's not Australian. She might be from a different country, because I'll hear their other language. Often that happens because I love languages. I used to speak quite a few, not using those so many, but I am fluent in French. I used to be fluent in Spanish and quite good in Italian. So languages kind of flow quite easily with me and through my ears. I might start to smell something. I might start to say, I know this lady loved nice perfumes because I can smell her perfume. And I might even start to touch my hair, going, I know she loved her hair and had beautiful hair. And, so they just blend with you as best they can to bring forth the message and the awareness of who they are. And it's quite remarkable, Angela, when that happens, and it amazes me. And it's such an honor to be able to do this and be this. And I know myself, I'm a hypersensitive person, and I used to be criticized as a child for it. I used to be teased at school for it. It was a bane of my life. It really was hard. But now I realize my sensitivity is now my gift to be able to tune in to energy from people in the spirit world. And I'm very, very grateful to be able to be this and have this and offer messages to people. It's just very, very rewarding.
Thank you for describing that. It was really interesting to observe as it was happening in real time, and the messages you passed on from my friend were really comforting as well, and things that I needed to hear. So it really is a gift that you're offering. Out of curiosity, what do you think from your experiences with spirit? What happens to us when we pass? What is your feeling there?
I haven't gone there yet to my awareness, but what we understand, or what we are led to understand through information that's passed on to us, and I talk about us because it's not just my awareness, it's what I've been taught with my mentors, my teachers that I continue to see and train with and work with, is that, yes, the physical body, the blood, the bones, the skin, the cells, that comes to an end, a closing, if you like. However, the essence of us, the soul that we are, our minds, our spirit elevates, and it just becomes part of the consciousness, part of the conscious energy that's around us. So it takes a different form. Our physical form becomes energy and becomes a different form. And that's something we can tune into, that energy when we want to. People will say to me, Angela, I wish I could talk to my mother that's passed. And I'll say, you can. She's around you. I might have a gift because I use this all the time, but they will always want to blend with their loved ones. And they do that in very, very remarkable ways. And it is just an energy. And they don't sort of switch on and switch off. They're there whenever you want them to be there. There's no limit. It's not like you can talk to them only twice a year, or you get charged extra. There's no fee to this. People say, well, do they follow me to the bathroom? I'm like, no, come on now. They're not going to follow you to the bathroom. Don't be silly. But they are around when you need them. And I remember when my mother died and I was 16 and I was in tremendous shock and grief and sadness. And I remember lying on the bed crying at home. And I remember holding my hands out and I said out loud, Mum, if you're there, let me know. I want to know you're there. And it was as though she was in the room. Her hands came and she held my hands and she squeezed my hands. And then she put her hands around my face and then she kissed me. And I felt all of those, Angela. I felt all of those as though she was still alive. And so I knew then that there is a life after death and I have to trust that process. And I think, I talk to people that come to me for, sessions say, I do feel my father around me, or I do feel my mother around, or I do feel my child around me. You know, something shifts in a person when you've had that loss, and it just softens your energy. You become more aware, and it's not from desperation or wanting, it's because it's real. And we're so busy in the world that we live in that we just shut down from anything. And it takes sometimes someone to pass for you to realize, okay, perhaps there is more to life than what we understand. And perhaps you then you open your awareness and you think, actually, yeah, there is something else out there. It's not just us in this world. There is another dimension, if you like.
That would have been so comforting to get that feeling and response from your mum when you just needed her touch and her comfort. I'm so sorry, you had that experience at such a young age, Sophie, but how beautiful that your mum connected to you in that way. Like that's such comfort to everyone listening, I'm sure. Like I'm touched. Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure. And Mum is one of my guides, because when I've done mediumship retreats and workshops with other students, she always pops in. Other mediums bring in my mum, and they bring in messages of things that that I haven't. They don't know me, so how would they know that? And so it's just beautiful that she's around. She's watching over. She's probably helping me help others, and that's the journey. And so I'm very grateful for her help in the spirit world. Thanks, Mum.
That's beautiful. And then in terms of our spirit team, aside from people who've passed who are our loved ones who are helping guide us, who else can we call on to assist us in our life? What's the best way to connect with them?
Yeah, so that's a great question. A lot of people ask me, how can I connect to my guides? And first of all, I'll say, well, we all have guides. Nobody doesn't have a guide. We all have people that are keeping an eye over us, looking after us. Often they are family members. But if you haven't had a family member pass, you might get a sense, or you might feel that there's someone around. It can be an angel. It can be an archangel. It can be a guide from a different planet. We talk about the Lemurians, Arcturians, the Pleiadians. We talk about different beings from a different life force that come and support us. It can be some, kind of American African or an Indian American, or, everyone's got a different way. It can be an animal. Sometimes people say, I feel like I've got a fox around me, or I feel like I've got a wolf around me. It can be a spirit animal that can be your guide. Or it can just be someone that you don't necessarily know, but they're there. They've been chosen, or they've chosen you to look after you. And my understanding is, and with my own guides, that I have some for a lifetime and some that come in for a short time. And so you might feel someone around you. And so the best way to connect is in meditation, is to close your eyes and sit quietly, sit in the stillness, and say in your mind's eye, or say out loud, who is my guide? Who are you? And see what you feel. See if you get a sense of someone. Are they male? Are they female? Are they tall? Are they short? Is it an alien? Is it a guide? Is it a guardian? Is it a family member? And just blend with the energy and just feel. Often you'll be quite surprised at what you sense when you do that. And it does take a bit of practice, especially if you have no idea. But if you have some idea and you've been working in the spirit world, or if you've been working with the spirituality for a while, you'll get an awareness. You might sort of turn your head like you think someone's there, or you feel someone around you. And that's guides, that's guardians protecting you, looking after you. You can have guides for something simple like, I'm driving into Broadway shopping centre, can you help me find a car park? And all of a sudden you get an empty car spot that comes. It can be something quite simple. It doesn't have to be life-changing. Or it can be, can you help me make a big decision about a career choice I need to make? Should I do this? Feel into that question, feel into the response and what you feel around you. Because they come through, they blend with your thoughts, they blend with your images, your vision, they blend with your smell, with your hearing, with your all senses six senses are activated. And so I say to people, try and be aware of that. You know, what are you feeling? What are you seeing? What are you knowing? What are you hearing? What are you tasting? What are you smelling? Because they will blend with you.
I love that these are conversations we're having, you know, with our loved ones, with our team. But you also, I love that it's a sense of feeling that you're sensing, and that we can all be in touch with it if we just, you know, pause for a moment and access that. This will lead me, before we wrap up, into the energy space clearing, Sophie, because I think we've all had that experience, you know, walking into a space and it either feels quite warm and inviting or sometimes really cold and there's an energy that we don't like in it. What are we sensing when we feel those feelings in a space?
So space clearing is probably something that I worked on at the very beginning before I realized I had any kind of ability in this field. And just I remember coming to, or even in England when I was younger, I would sometimes walk into a room and I'd say, oh, something's not good in here, don't like it. And my friends would say, what are you talking about? I can't feel anything. I'd be like, no, there's something really bad in this room right now. I'm not comfortable. I'd get chills. I'd get goosebumps. And so I was aware of something. Wasn't necessarily doing anything about it, but I was feeling things. And so when I moved out to Australia when I was 21, and I moved into this rental apartment, and I got this feeling of something really icky, really yucky. And so I naturally gravitated. I said, right, I've got to burn a candle. I've got to get some bells. I've got to go around and you know, change up. I've got to open the windows. We've got to get some flowers. I've got to get some. I just wanted to change the energy. I was just doing that naturally. I was gravitating to that. But then I realized what I was picking up. I would walk into a room and I'd feel if there had been disharmony. I'd feel if someone had passed in a room. And I'd actually know how they passed when I tuned into it enough. I'd feel if there'd been an argument, if someone had broken up from a marriage and was selling a house. I'd feel the energy of the anger and the aggression and the frustration in the house. So I was feeling into the energy. It was giving me a story. It was giving me a blueprint, if you like. And so I realized that, okay, so there's a way of clearing this. We can change this. It's not always bad, by the way. Sometimes it's just someone else's energy. And when I talk about space clearing, and I say to people, they say, how often should we do a space clearing? And I'd say, well, if you move into a house, you want to do one. If you're selling a house, you want to do one. You want to do them probably twice a year in your own home to clear the energy, because we're energy. We go outside in the world and we, absorb energy, and we walk inside and that energy goes into our home. And then all of a sudden you might be in a good mood when you leave the house, and when you're in a bad mood when you come back, because you've picked up other people's energy, which then gets, dropped into your house. And so it's like, if you were to have a shower, you wouldn't want to give someone a dirty towel to dry themselves. You want to give them a fresh towel to dry themselves. And so, if you're moving into a home that you've just bought, you want to clear the energy of the previous occupants, and not necessarily because they have bad energy, but it's their energy. People feel, they can sleep better in rooms. They don't have headaches. They're not as grumpy. They're not as frustrated. It's amazing the energy that can linger in a space. And so I'm always surprised that people have, never heard of it, want to do it, and how they respond afterwards. And I'm doing more clearings now than I used to as well.
Are there some simple tricks you can suggest to clear the bedroom, for example, so we get a better night's sleep?
So I always say sage. Sage is one of the oldest forms of, smoke ceremony cleaning. It's been used for eons, but it's very, very powerful. But you have to have a really clear intention of what you want, because it starts with the thoughts, it starts with the ideas. So if you're not sleeping well in a bedroom, then you go in with the intention of clearing anything that's not yours, anything that's doesn't resonate with you or your space. And you walk around the room and you waft the sage around the room, clearing anything that no longer belongs there or no longer, should be there. And you can open up windows and let it out. So sage is a very powerful clearer of energy. I also like to use salt, rock salt, or any salt, and you leave salt in the corner of the room. So, 4 or 5 little pots of salt, and that absorbs, and you'll find the salt will get really hard, and you know that that's absorbed energy, and then you throw it out a few days later. Candles are great. Just burning candles in a room, setting an intention about what you want. Essential oils. I work a lot with essential oil. So you might want to bring in some lavender or frankincense or something quite calming, and also to clear. Interestingly enough, flowers, plants, they also change the energy in a room. Lights, lamps in a bedroom are really good to change the energy as well. And I also say, if there's something in the room that you don't like, then clear it out. Often we will say, oh, that's grandma's chair. I don't really like it, but, I had to take it. And I'll say to them, so if you don't like the chair, you can always rehome it, offer it to someone else in the family that will probably love it. Because if there's something in the house that's annoying you, then that energy is going to always annoy you. You're going to always think about it. So it's little things like, furniture, moving furniture around.
And what about photos of loved ones? Do you suggest that they're a good thing in the bedroom or a space?
Absolutely. Definitely. It's beautiful to have photos up. And often I get messages that come through, and the things they say, the spirit family say, tell them I love that photo of me, in the bedroom. They love to see themselves. They love to be reminded about and kept alive. That's more photos, the better. Unfortunately, everything's now digital on our phones, so not many people actually print out photos. I'm a bit old-fashioned that way. I do love pictures and photos, so I've got lots around the home.
So we're coming up towards the end, Sophie. There's just 2 final questions that I ask all the guests. So I'd love to know from you, what's something you'd wish you'd known earlier about your spirituality and this path?
I wished I'd trusted myself from a younger age to stay in what I already had, but the fear of what I was presented with stopped that for a while. So I wished I just trusted in the process, and I wished I'd stayed on path from a younger age, I think. But certainly the death of my mother did change that. But I think also perhaps there was a reason why I had to go off and do that other part as well. But I would have liked to have stayed true to what I was really interested in from a young age, I think.
And what's something that's really surprised you on this journey so far?
My clients, I love how welcoming, how warm, how open, how receptive they are. And that's what kind of drives me, Angela, to do the work that I do, is to see, when I see the significant changes in my clients, it makes me cry. I do. I often cry in happy tears with my clients, and it's a real driver for the work that I'm doing, and it motivates me to do more. And I do know there is a lot more for me to do, certainly this year and moving forward. So I'm just working at sort of shifting and changing at the moment what that looks like and where that is, to be able to be of service to more people, to get the message of healing across, messages across. But certainly my clients motivate me, and that's remarkable, and it always surprises me at how this work can heal people. I love it.
I love your passion, Sophie, so much. How can people best connect with you? What's the best way?
Look, I've got a website. It's probably the best way.
sophyrobertson.com.au, and that's spelled SOPHY Robertson.com.au.
You can go into my website where you've got all the services, the workshops. I do run regular workshops on all kinds of topics, mediumship, psychic, Reiki, learning Reiki, tarot cards, crystal, and lots of other things. So there's always something interesting for people to come and check out. But the website's the best place to go to.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sophie. It's been absolutely wonderful chatting with you and hearing, how you've been able to help and transform people's lives, but also the journey you've had as well. So thank you so much for sharing. It's been amazing.
Angela, thank you for having me. I've loved talking with you. You have beautiful energy, and I love sharing my story with you, and I feel very lucky to be able to share this with you. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. We look forward to hearing more about your future projects as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, So many of you have been asking for more help with sleep. So I've created a free sleep guide, 5 simple steps to help you fall asleep faster, to quiet your busy mind, and to wake up feeling restored. Head to stan.store/Finding Spirit to download it now. The link's also in the show notes. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast was created and pay my respects to elders past and present. Thank you for listening to Finding Spirit.